So, hold on. This is the recipe. This is my stuff. I got the chocolate chips, baking soda, and vanilla, and 2 things of butter because they're both half empty, and 2 things of eggs because they are also both half empty, and brown sugar, and white sugar, and flour. Okay, gotta get a bowl because that's what we mix with. So the recipe says to cream the butter, the sugar, and the eggs together. So I guess that's what we're gonna do. Let me set that up there. Okay. So butter, sugar, and eggs. Okay. So it's a cup of butter, a cup of brown sugar, and a cup or a half of a cup of white sugar. So do that. Also, for like the type of reaction and stuff, there's, I think chocolate chip cookies have a couple different ones. I better do, brown sugar first. I think there's a couple different reactions, like when the butter melts in the cookie, instead of it being like a ball shape, the cookie like flattens out, and like that's how it gets this shape. So I guess more butter, the flatter the cookie. I have to go get more brown sugar, so I guess you get to come with some more. Okay, so I've had to resort to go back to filming on Snapchat because my phone doesn't have enough storage. So I'm gonna cream the butter and the sugars now. Okay, so then the next step is to add vanilla flour and baking soda. And the recipe says I need 2 cups of flour. There's about 1. There's 2. And then it's a teaspoon of baking soda. And 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. But we're going to put 3 because why not? See what it does. And then we're going to... You can also switch baking soda and baking powder to have like fluffier cookies because it just adds more like leavening into the cookies because it produces carbon dioxide both when it's mixed and when it's heating up instead of the baking soda. So I forgot to put the eggs in with the butter and sugar. So I'm just going to do that now. See what it does. Can't like mess it up too much. Okay, so last step is to add the chocolate chip cookies, or chocolate chips, not the cookies. And it says that I need like, oh, it doesn't give me a measurement, so I guess we're just guesstimate. See what that does. Also, you don't want to over mix. Oh, geez, that zoomed in. You don't want to over mix the dough, because as soon as you do, you're like adding extra air to the cookies, and they turn out like real flat and hard. So you should stop mixing them as soon as like the wet ingredients mixes with the dry ones. Yes. Turn the flash on so you can really see. I'm thinking it's looking really peachy. So now I just have to put it in the oven. And the recipe says to drop it onto a cookie sheet, probably grease it first, and bake it at 375 for 5 to 10 minutes. So, yeah. Okay. Okay, we're gonna do this. So I'm going to grease my cookie sheet so that the cookies don't stick or bake onto the pan. It's probably a lot, but that's okay. We are better safe than we are sorry. I had a genius idea. I thought, why don't we do half the cookies on a greased pan and half of them on a pan with parchment paper. There's still more batter left. This is not all the cookies. And they're substantially different in size. So, not the cookies, the pans. So that's just something to take into consideration. So the recipe says about like 5 to 10 minutes. So I think we're going to go with 7 and see how that works out. I put them in for about 7 minutes, but they're definitely not done yet. So I'm thinking another 2. And usually if they like look done in the oven, then I'll stick a toothpick in them. And if they come out, like if the toothpick comes out wet, then that means they're not cooked all the way. If it comes out dry, then you're good to go. So I decided to take them out because they're looking a little crispy on the edges. And those two blended together, but that usually happens when I make cookies. Now I'm going to put the ones on parchment paper in for like 9 minutes. So I just thought that I'd show you kind of the inside and like for you to see how like really puffed up the cookies are. That is from the water, or from the steam from the water, making the cookies rise, and also the baking powder just kind of, yeah, there's like gas inside, so it rises. See, kind of around the edge of the cookie, it's a little bit darker, a little bit more brown, and that's from when the cookies are almost done baking and everything else is like good, but they're almost done. The sugars in the cookie caramelize, and that's why the cookies turn into like a brown, like a golden brown kind of color. I guess brown sugar probably does that, probably contributes to the color too, because it's like already brown, but it's caramelization. I would say the biggest limiting reactant that I have would be the chocolate chips, because you can't make chocolate chip cookies without chocolate chips. And I had like half a bag, but if I only had, let's say, like a handful, then I could have only made, I think I used like 2 cups in this batch. So if I only had a handful, let's say that's 3/4 of a cup, I could make, I think, half of a recipe and then have a little bit of extra chocolate chips left over.